Altrincham have gone down by 1-0 against Gloucester City this afternoon, and we're talking to assistant manager Robbie Lawton. Robbie, I think there was plenty of optimism leading into the game this week, certainly from the supporters, and I'm sure from yourself and Matt Doughty as well. I think we thought maybe this was the day that we'd get our first home win, and at times it looked as if that might happen, but overall another disappointing afternoon.
Yeah, the optimism has been building. I think that stems from performances that haven't warranted 3 points, but have shown an upward trend. Certainly, I've not got much to compare it to other than since I've been here. But I am led to believe that optimism hasn't been around on a consistent basis. We thought today there was a feeling that we would turn a corner. I agree with you. But the fans aren't naive. They know that points matter, and I think they take points over performances every day of the week at the moment. We can't keep saying we've possibly done enough to win. We can't keep saying we've had lots of possession. At the end of the day, tangibly, we have no points to show again.
We started the game okay, and Gloucester are a decent side. They're sitting quite comfortably in mid-table in the league, and they had a bit of pace up front. But the goal that we gave away, I mean, it was I'm not quite sure who was at fault, but it looked to me like 4 or 5 players almost like froze and just didn't do their job.
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult to see where we were, but what I would say is we got sucked into a poor game of football. That wasn't our plan at the beginning of the day. It hasn't been our plan since Thursday. We were naive. We got sucked in, and we ended up being punished for it. Our tempo was slow. Again, that wasn't the idea. Slow to reset goal kicks, reset throw-ins, reset free kicks, and we should have been comfortable this afternoon. I didn't think they offered much. I think they were fairly route one, fairly combative. And I'm not surprised that there was, as you've just said, 3 or 4 players possibly at fault for the one goal. That does seem to be a reoccurring theme. Until we resolve that, we're not going to get those 0-0s and those 1-0s because we're giving ourselves too much to do. The player's mindset is one of, oh, here we go again. And that's deeply ingrained. That's a deep-rooted problem that we're fighting against. We are challenging that mindset every time we meet the players, but it's proven to be more challenging to get through to the players that they need to motivate themselves to achieve rather than motivate themselves to avoid failing, and that's the problem.
We had plenty of the ball today, but we didn't create many chances at all. In fact, it's really taken until the 5th minute of added time before we've tested Jasbir Singh, and it was a decent effort from James Lorry. One of the few chances where we've had the goal in our sights, but a very, very good save. And disappointing, though, not to have been more penetrative in front of goal.
Yeah, I would say that's the first time since we've been here that the players have had pretty negative reinforcements at half time. That's to put it nicely, because they deserved it. That first half was not acceptable. There have been performances since we've been here that have been acceptable, but the first half today was not. Second half, we've not been incisive enough, we've not been clinical enough. In saying that, how many times do our forward offensive players want the ball to bounce around the box? How many times do they want it to bounce in the 6-yard box? How many times do they want it to ricochet in the box? We get good possession in front of the back 4. Is anybody clever enough to slide that ball in behind? I tell you now, we have got the players to do that. They do it in training. They do it in training all the time. They are not repeating and replicating that on a match day. And it's an old saying, isn't it? If we don't win 11 battles, we're going to come off second best.
It's very easy to say when you're bottom of the table things don't run for you, but I think what you've just been saying is we really do need to start creating our own luck with a more positive mindset and more positive mentality.
It is. I'm a firm believer that the mentality is the issue here, and it's not surprising really looking at the table and looking at how often the players have found themselves in this position. But no one will feel sorry for them. No one will resolve this. We've got to do it. They've got to do it. They've got very, very patient fans who have been losing patience, and the renewed optimism. Well, how long is that going to stay there? You know, they need to repay. We need to repay those fans who travel, the infrastructure, the people behind the club off the pitch. We need to repay them, and at the moment, collectively, we are not repaying them, and we'll be in a league whereby if you think you're going to bounce back up, then you should think again. We have to pull out all the stops to avoid going down, and only when it's mathematically impossible do we think of an alternative strategy. Today was a must 3 points. Next week's now must 3 points. How many times can we keep saying that it must change, lads? It must change. So there's got to be some responsibility taken, individually and collectively, us included.
Yeah, one win with less than 20 games to go, and we're going to have to get 10 wins from somewhere if we're going to stay up at least, probably. That's a massive ask.
It's a huge ask. Everyone knows it's a huge ask. It's not impossible, but it will remain impossible, and it'll remain a distant aim if we don't start getting bodies in and around the box and being clinical and being incisive and being clever with the ball. Because then those defensive lapses won't be costing us. At the moment, because we're not putting many in the other end, we're coming off with defeats because we're not scoring. And any defensive lapse is costing us 3 points. It's just not costing us a goal, it's costing us 3 points.
And you mentioned the league below is not one that we can expect to bounce up from. There's some good sides in that Evo Stick Premier Division, and Altrincham would be a huge name in there.
Well, they would be, yeah. Well, I mean, we don't want to think about that. But you look at this league now, it's almost like a new conference. You look at some of the gates and some of the big clubs and some of the money in this league. It's not the same in the league below, and it would be a very difficult task for a club like this in the first instance to face that reality. I'm sure there'll be funding cuts as well, sponsorship cuts. We gotta realise that that's where this is heading. If there's not a corner to turn. You can't turn the corner. You know, colleagues around the club can't turn it. We've got to turn it. We've got to do it. We've been given the job till the end of the season. I can only attempt to convince fans that the lads are being put through a hell of a lot of training. Their concentration levels in training is good. They are responding positively, but on a match day, too often they're falling short, and we've got to stop that.
You mentioned the fans there, another good crowd there, 915 this afternoon, 40 from Gloucester. So that's the best part of 900 Altrincham fans in the stadium, and they keep turning up.
Yeah, they do, yeah, and they've done that for years. And there might have been another 100, 150 because, as you mentioned, of the renewed optimism, that feeling. But if it remains a feeling and there's no outcomes, there's nothing tangible, there's no points, there's no draws, there's no wins, they're going to lose patience, and rightly so.
So Robbie Lawton, their Altrincham assistant manager, with an honest assessment of the performance this afternoon in the defeat against Gloucester City and Altrincham's current very difficult predicament right at the foot of the Vanarama National League North.